Don't move. Just breathe. On a fog-draped evening in downtown Seattle, a quiet ex-military single dad steps into an upscale corporate gala as temporary security, only to spot a deadly gesture that could end a life in seconds. A firm whisper, "Don't move. Just breathe," pulls a powerful tech CEO and his brilliant 13-year-old daughter into a web of encrypted threats, underground chases, and a conspiracy that reaches far beyond the glittering ballroom. What starts as one intercepted moment spirals into a heart-pounding journey of sacrifice, redemption, and the extraordinary power of courage that transforms strangers into something far deeper. The fog rolled thick that night, wrapping the city in silver mystery. Inside the towering glass walls of the Cascade Summit Hotel, champagne flowed and power players mingled beneath crystal lights. But to one man watching from the shadows, danger lurked in every polished smile. And he was about to risk everything to stop it. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The fog came in waves across Seattle that October evening, rolling off Elliott Bay like a living thing. It softened the edges of the downtown skyline, turning the sharp glass towers into ghostly silhouettes. From the street level, the Cascade Summit Hotel looked like a palace suspended in mist, its 25 floors of windows glowing warm against the gathering dark dot inside the grand ballroom on the 15th floor. The annual Pacific Tech Innovation Summit was in full swing. 1,000 candles flickered on white-clothed tables. A jazz quartet played smooth melodies from a corner stage. Men in tailored suits and women in elegant gowns moved like chess pieces across the polished marble floor, their laughter mixing with the gentle clink of crystal glasses. Victor Malone stood near the service entrance, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. He wore a simple black suit provided by the security company, a temporary uniform for a temporary job. At 38, Victor carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen the world at its worst and chosen to build something better. His dark hair was cropped short, military style, though he had left that life behind 6 years ago. His hands, calloused from work, rested easily at his sides, but his gaze never stopped moving. To the guests swirling past him, Victor was invisible. Just another hired guard among a dozen scattered through the venue. That suited him fine. Invisibility was a skill he had honed over years of reconnaissance missions in places most people could not pronounce. Now he used that same skill to move through life unnoticed, working part-time security gigs and weekend shifts at a small bookshop in the Queen Anne neighborhood. But tonight was different. Tonight, he had brought his daughter. Across the room, seated at a small table near the tall windows overlooking the foggy cityscape, sat 13-year-old Iris Malone. Her auburn hair fell in loose waves past her shoulders, and her green eyes were fixed intently on the tablet in front of her. While other guests chattered and networked, Iris was deep in her own world, a world of algorithms and encryption keys, of puzzles that whispered their secrets to those patient enough to listen. She wore a simple navy dress that Victor had bought for the occasion, though she had insisted on keeping her worn sneakers. Iris was brilliant in ways that sometimes frightened Victor. She could break down complex mathematical problems faster than most adults, could write code that danced across screens like poetry, and had a memory that captured details others missed entirely. Her teachers called her gifted. Victor just called her his miracle. Ever since her mother, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Malone, had died in a training accident overseas, Victor and Iris had become a team of two. They had learned to navigate grief together, to fill the silence with trust and shared routines. Victor had left the Navy SEALs shortly after, unwilling to leave his daughter to grow up without both parents. He had traded the adrenaline of combat for the quiet rhythm of bedtime stories, homework help, and weekend hikes through the Cascades. Tonight, the security company had been short-staffed. and Victor had agreed to cover the summit gala. When Iris had asked to come along, promising to stay quiet and work on her coding project, he had not had the heart to say no. She was responsible beyond her years, and the hotel had a quiet corner where she could sit unnoticed. Victor checked his watch. 2 hours into the event, and everything had been routine. A few guests had too much wine, a minor argument over a business deal had flared and fizzled, and one waiter had dropped a tray of appetizers. Nothing unusual. But then his gaze snagged on something that made his pulse quicken, near the champagne fountain. A server in a crisp white jacket moved with practiced efficiency, pouring wine into crystal flutes. But there was something wrong in the way he moved. His eyes darted too quickly, scanning the room with the sharp focus of someone executing a plan rather than serving drinks. Victor had seen that look before, in operatives preparing to strike. The server reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small glass vial, barely larger than a pen cap. With a smooth, almost invisible motion, he tipped the vial over one of the wine glasses. A few drops of clear liquid disappeared into the dark red wine. Victor's breath caught. Every instinct honed over a decade of military service screamed a warning. This was not a prank. This was an attack. He followed the server's line of sight across the crowded ballroom, tracking where that poisoned glass was headed. His eyes landed on a woman standing near the floor-to-ceiling windows, framed by the fog-blurred city lights like a portrait, Madison Garcia. Even among the wealthy and influential crowd, Madison stood out. As the CEO of Vanguard Systems, one of the fastest-growing cybersecurity firms on the West Coast, she was a force. She wore a midnight blue gown that moved like water, her dark hair swept up in an elegant twist. Her expression was calm, confident, the look of someone who had built an empire from scratch and knew exactly how powerful she was. She was speaking with a group of investors, her hands gesturing gracefully as she made a point. She was completely unaware that a waiter was approaching her table with a glass of poisoned wine. Victor did not hesitate. Years of training took over, instinct overriding thought. He moved smoothly through the crowd, his steps quick but not rushed, his face calm. He reached Madison's table just as the server set the tray down. In one fluid motion, Victor stepped between Madison and the waiter, his hand gently but firmly covering the wine glass. His other hand rested lightly on Madison's shoulder, a touch meant to ground her, to keep her from reacting loudly. Madison turned, startled, her gray eyes flashing with confusion and the beginning of anger. Her mouth opened to speak, but Victor leaned close, his voice low and steady, a command wrapped in calm. "Don't move," he whispered. "Just breathe." For a split second, the world seemed to freeze. The jazz music faded into background noise. The chatter of the crowd became a distant hum. Madison's eyes locked onto Victor's, wide with shock but also something else, an instinctive recognition that this man was not a threat. Victor kept his voice quiet, his lips barely moving. "Someone just poisoned your drink. I need you to stay calm and follow my lead." Madison's breath hitched, but she gave the smallest nod, her composure holding even as fear flickered across her face. Victor turned his head slightly, scanning the room. The suspicious waiter had already vanished into the crowd, swallowed by the sea of black suits and evening gowns. But Victor had his face memorized, every detail locked into his mind. He slowly removed his hand from the wine glass and gestured subtly toward the service corridor. "We need to move, now." Madison hesitated for only a heartbeat, then rose smoothly from her seat, her public mask still in place. To anyone watching, it looked like a polite conversation, nothing more. Across the room, Iris glanced up from her tablet, her sharp eyes catching her father's movement. She knew that posture, that focused intensity. Something was wrong. She closed her tablet, slipped it into her bag, and quietly made her way toward him. Victor guided Madison toward the service hallway, his hand lightly on her elbow. As they moved, he spoke quietly. Do you have enemies? Someone who would want you dead? Madison's voice was tight but controlled. In my line of work? More than I can count. They reached the service door just as Iris arrived at Victor's side. Madison looked down at the girl, confusion crossing her face. This is Iris, Victor said simply. My daughter. And right now, she is the safest person in this building to have with us. Iris met Madison's gaze with calm confidence. Hi, we should probably get you away from the crowd. Madison stared at them both, a powerful CEO suddenly dependent on a security guard and a teenager. And in that moment, as the door swung closed behind them and the noise of the gala faded, a fragile alliance was born. The service corridor was a stark contrast to the glittering ballroom. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a cold white glow on concrete walls and steel doors. The air smelled faintly of industrial cleaner and the rich aroma of catered food. Being prepared in the kitchens below. Victor moved quickly but deliberately, his eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. Madison followed close behind, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Iris brought up the rear, her tablet already out, fingers flying across the screen. Where are we going? Madison asked, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Somewhere with fewer people and better sightlines, Victor replied. He stopped at a junction where 3 corridors met and turned to face her. I need you to tell me everything. Who knew you were attending tonight? Who had access to your schedule? Madison took a breath, her mind racing through the possibilities. My executive team. My assistant. The event organizers. Probably a dozen other people through shared calendars and email chains. She paused. I announced my attendance publicly on social media 2 weeks ago. Victor's jaw tightened. So anyone with motivation and resources could have planned this. Dad, Iris said quietly, still focused on her screen. I just pulled up the hotel's public Wi-Fi network. There's some weird traffic here. Someone is using a device that is masking its signature, bouncing signals through multiple proxies. Victor looked at his daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. Can you trace it? Give me a few minutes, Iris said, settling onto the floor with her back against the wall. Completely absorbed in her work, Madison stared at the girl, then at Victor. Who are you people? Victor met her gaze. Someone who happened to be in the right place at the right time. And someone who does not like seeing innocent people hurt. You are not just a security guard, Madison said. Reading the confidence in his posture, the way he carried himself with lethal calm. Former Navy SEAL, Victor admitted. But that life is behind me. Now I just try to keep my daughter safe and make enough to cover rent. Madison's expression softened slightly. And yet here you are, saving my life. Here I am, Victor agreed. A sudden metallic clang echoed from somewhere deeper in the corridor. Victor's hand instinctively moved to his hip, where a weapon would have been in his old life. But he was unarmed now, just a civilian in a borrowed suit. Stay behind me, he said quietly. He moved toward the sound, his footsteps silent despite the hard floor. Madison followed, her heart pounding. They reached a corner, and Victor peered around it carefully. The corridor ahead was empty. But a service door at the far end swung slightly on its hinges, as if someone had just passed through. He knows we are onto him, Victor murmured. Iris appeared at his side, tablet in hand. Dad, I found something. The masked device is transmitting encrypted data to an external server. I cannot break the encryption yet, but I can see the data packets. They are sending live video feeds. Victor's eyes narrowed. From where? Security cameras, Iris said. Someone hacked into the hotel's camera system. They have been watching us this whole time. Madison felt a chill run down her spine. They are tracking me. Not just you, Victor said grimly. They are tracking all of us now. He pulled out his phone and dialed the hotel's main security desk. A bored voice answered after 3 rings. This is Victor Malone, contract security on the 10th floor. We have a serious situation. I need you to lock down all service exits and alert SPPD. Someone attempted to poison a guest. There was a pause, then the voice sharpened. Say again? Attempted poisoning. Suspect is a male server, white jacket, dark hair, approximately 6 feet tall. He is still inside the building. I need backup now. Copy that. Stay where you are. We are sending a team. Victor ended the call and turned to Madison. We need to get you somewhere secure until the police arrive. What about the wine glass? Madison asked. That is evidence. Already handled, Iris said, holding up her phone. I took photos of it before we left, including the serial number on the base of the glass and the surrounding area. If anyone tries to remove it, we have documentation. Madison looked at the girl with newfound respect. You are incredibly smart. Iris smiled shyly. I just like solving problems. Victor led them to a storage room marked maintenance only and ushered them inside. The small space was filled with cleaning supplies and spare linens, but it had only one entrance and no windows. Defensible, he positioned himself near the door, listening intently. Madison leaned against a metal shelf, her earlier poise beginning to crack. I do not understand, she said quietly. Who would do this? And why tonight? Victor glanced at her. You are closing a major deal soon, are you not? I saw the headlines. Vanguard Systems is about to merge with a European firm. Madison nodded. The biggest deal in my company's history. Worth billions. It would make us one of the top 3 cybersecurity firms globally. Then you have enemies, Victor said simply. Competitors who would lose market share. Shareholders who might disagree with the direction. Even internal rivals who want control. Madison wrapped her arms around herself. I have spent 10 years building this company from nothing. I have made enemies, yes, but I never thought someone would try to kill me. People do terrible things when enough money is at stake, Victor said. A soft buzzing sound made them all tense. Iris checked her tablet and her eyes widened. Dad, the encrypted signal just spiked. Someone is accessing the hotel's elevator controls remotely. Victor's instincts flared. Which elevator? The service elevator. It is moving. Coming down from the 20th floor to this level. Victor's mind raced. The 20th floor was mostly storage and mechanical rooms, rarely used by guests. If someone was coming down from there, they were deliberately avoiding the main areas. We need to move, he said urgently. Now. He opened the door carefully and checked the corridor. Empty. He gestured for Madison and Iris to follow and led them toward the emergency stairwell at the opposite end of the hall. They were halfway. There when the service elevator chimed softly. The doors began to slide open. Victor grabbed Madison's arm and pulled her into a recessed doorway. Iris pressed herself flat against the wall beside them, holding her breath. From their hiding spot, they watched as a figure stepped out of the elevator. It was the same waiter from before, but now he had removed his white jacket, revealing a black tactical vest underneath. In his hand, he carried a small metal case. The man moved with cold efficiency, checking his phone and then walking purposefully down the corridor. Away from where they were hidden, Victor waited until the man turned a corner. Then whispered, "Go, stairs, now." They moved quickly and silently. Victor pushed open the stairwell door and they slipped inside, the heavy door closing with a soft click behind them. The stairwell was dimly lit, their footsteps echoing slightly as they descended. Victor led them down 2 flights before stopping on a landing. We will wait here until hotel security and the police arrive. he said. Madison leaned against the railing, her breathing heavy. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Iris looked up at her father. Dad, why did he have a case? What do you think was in it? Victor's expression was grim. Nothing good. Either more poison or something worse. Whatever is happening, this was not just about one drink. This was planned, professional. Madison looked at him, fear finally breaking through her composure. If you had not been there, if you had not seen him, I would be dead right now. Victor met her eyes. But I was there. And you are alive. That is what matters. For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of what had almost happened settling over them like the fog outside. Then Iris spoke softly. We are going to figure this out. Whoever did this left digital footprints. They always do. And I am really good at following footprints. Madison looked at the girl, this remarkable young person who spoke with such confidence, and felt something shift inside her. Gratitude, yes, but also something deeper. A recognition that her life had just been saved by two people who owed her nothing. Thank you, she said quietly. Both of you. I do not know how to repay this. Victor shook his head. You do not owe us anything. We did what anyone should do. But even as he said it, he knew this was only the beginning. The poisoned drink was just the first move in a larger game. And somehow he and Iris had just become players. The emergency stairwell was cold and silent, insulated from the noise of the gala several floors above. Victor stood near the door, his ear pressed against the metal, listening for any sound of movement in the corridor beyond. Madison sat on the concrete steps, her elegant gown pooling around her like spilled ink. Iris was cross-legged on the landing, tablet balanced on her knees, her face illuminated by the pale glow of the screen. Minutes stretched like hours. The adrenaline that had fueled their escape was beginning to ebb, leaving behind a raw awareness of danger. How long until the police arrive? Madison asked, her voice echoing slightly in the enclosed space. Victor checked his phone. Should be any minute. Hotel security is probably securing the building now. Iris looked up from her work. Dad, I have been analyzing the data packets from that masked device. The encryption is military grade, but the transmission pattern is weird. It is not continuous. It is pulsing in intervals, like someone is sending specific commands rather than streaming video. Victor turned to his daughter. What kind of commands? I cannot tell without breaking the encryption, Iris admitted. But the timing matches the elevator movement and the camera blackouts. Whoever is doing this has deep access to the hotel's systems. Madison leaned forward, her business mind engaging despite the fear. That means inside help. Someone who works here or someone who hacked the systems beforehand. Or someone who hacked the systems beforehand. Or both, Victor said. He moved away from the door and sat on the step below Madison. Tell me about your enemies. Not just competitors. Personal enemies. People with grudges. Madison closed her eyes, thinking. There are several. Richard Caldwell, my former business partner. We had a falling out 3 years ago when I bought him out of the company. He claimed I undervalued his shares. He sued, lost, and has been bitter ever since. Where is he now? Victor asked. Last I heard, he started his own firm in San Francisco. Smaller scale, but profitable. Anyone else? Madison hesitated. There was an investor group that wanted to force a hostile takeover last year. I fought them off, but it cost them millions. The lead investor, a man named Gerald Thorne, made some vague threats at the time. Nothing actionable, but unsettling. Iris typed rapidly on her tablet. Gerald Thorne, venture capitalist, based in Vancouver. Net worth estimated at $200 million. He has been involved in at least 4 hostile takeover attempts in the past decade. She looked up. He has the resources to hire professionals. Victor nodded slowly. What about the merger? Who benefits if it falls apart? Several smaller firms that would be squeezed out of the market if we succeed, Madison said. But also some people within my own company. My CFO, Nathan Cross, was against the merger from the start. He thought we were overextending. We had arguments about it in board meetings. Arguments serious enough to want you dead? Victor asked bluntly. Madison flinched at the directness, but answered honestly. I do not know. Nathan is ambitious, but murder? That seems extreme, even for corporate rivalry. Iris interrupted. I just found something. The hotel's camera system was compromised exactly 48 hours ago. Someone installed a backdoor that let them control the feeds remotely. It was hidden in a software update that looked legitimate. Victor's jaw tightened. So this was planned days in advance. They knew you would be here tonight. The summit has been on the calendar for months, Madison said. My attendance was confirmed 6 weeks ago. A sudden metallic bang echoed from somewhere above them in the stairwell. All three of them froze. Victor rose slowly, positioning himself between the sound and his daughter and Madison. Footsteps, descending from several floors up. Quick, purposeful. Victor motioned for silence, his finger to his lips. He moved to the railing and looked up the central shaft of the stairwell. In the dim light, he could just make out a shadow moving rapidly down the stairs. Go, he whispered urgently. Down, now. They moved as quietly as possible, descending the stairs quickly. Iris held her tablet close. Madison lifted the hem of her gown to avoid tripping. The footsteps above them grew louder, faster, as if the pursuer had heard them. Victor counted floors as they descended. 10th floor, 9th, 8th. Behind them, the footsteps echoed closer. At the 7th floor landing, Victor made a decision. He pushed open the door and ushered Madison and Iris into the corridor. This level was mostly empty, occupied by conference rooms that were dark and locked for the night. This way, he said, leading them down the carpeted hallway. The soft lighting here felt surreal after the harsh fluorescence of the service areas. They reached a corner, and Victor glanced back. The stairwell door was still closed. Maybe they had lost their pursuer. Maybe not. Iris tugged on his sleeve. Dad, there is a hotel business center on this floor. If it is open, I can plug directly into their network and get better access to the camera feeds. Victor looked at Madison. Do you have access to the business center? I am a platinum member, Madison said, pulling a keycard from her small clutch. I can get us in. They moved quickly to the business center, a glass-walled room filled with computers and printers. Madison's keycard worked, and they slipped inside. Locking the door behind them, Iris immediately moved to one of the computers and connected her tablet. This will take a few minutes, but I should be able to pull the full camera archive from tonight. Victor stood near the door, watching the empty corridor through the glass. His mind was racing, analyzing possibilities, calculating risks. This was not a random attack. This was coordinated, professional, and whoever was behind it had significant resources. Madison stood beside him, her reflection ghostly in the dark glass. I keep thinking about that glass of wine. How close I came. If you had not been there. But I was, Victor said quietly. Focus on that. Why did you help me? Madison asked suddenly. You do not know me. You could have just walked away. Victor was silent for a moment. 6 years ago, my wife died in an accident. Training exercise that went wrong. For a long time I was angry at the world, at the Navy, at God. I thought about all the times I had been in danger and survived. And how unfair it was that she died doing something routine. He paused, his voice softening. Iris helped me see that life is not about fairness. It is about the choices we make with the time we have. I chose to leave the military and raise my daughter. And I chose to help you tonight because it was the right thing to do. That is all the reason I need. Madison felt tears prick her eyes. Your daughter is lucky to have you. I am lucky to have her, Victor replied. Got it, Iris announced, her voice triumphant. She gestured to the computer screen. Full camera feed from tonight, including the deleted sections. Victor and Madison moved to stand behind her. The screen showed multiple camera angles from around the hotel. Time-stamped and organized. Iris navigated to the ballroom footage from an hour earlier. They watched as the suspicious waiter moved through the crowd, his actions seeming normal at first. Then Iris slowed the footage and zoomed in. There, she said, pointing. Watch his hands. On screen, the waiter reached into his vest and pulled out the small vial. The movement was smooth, practiced. He poured the liquid into the wine glass with barely a glance, then continued preparing the tray. Now watch this, Iris said, switching to a different camera angle. This one showed the service corridor behind the ballroom. The same waiter entered from a side door, but he was not alone. He met briefly with another figure, someone wearing a dark suit and a hotel staff badge. They exchanged a few words, too quiet for the camera's audio to pick up, and then the suited figure handed the waiter something small. The vial. Iris zoomed in on the suited figure's face. It was grainy, but recognizable. A man in his 50s, balding, with wire-rimmed glasses. Madison gasped. I know him. That is Martin Beck. He's the hotel's assistant operations manager. I have met him before at other events here. Victor's eyes narrowed. So the hotel is compromised. This was not just a lone attacker. This is organized. Iris kept working, pulling up more footage. Look at this. Beck meets with someone else 30 minutes before that. In the parking garage. The footage showed Beck standing beside a black SUV with tinted windows. A figure emerged from the vehicle, but they stayed in shadow, their face never visible to the camera. They handed Beck an envelope. Beck opened it, counted what looked like cash and nodded. Professional hit, Victor said grimly. Paid in advance. Multiple players. This is bigger than a corporate rivalry. Madison's phone suddenly buzzed. She pulled it out and her face went pale. What is it? Victor asked. Text message. From an unknown number. She held up the phone so they could read it. You should have drunk the wine. Now things get messy. Leave Seattle tonight or your company burns with you. The words hung in the air like a threat made solid. Iris looked at her father. They know we are helping her. Victor's expression hardened. Then we make sure they regret it. The threatening text message seemed to pulse on Madison's phone screen. Each word a hammer blow against the fragile sense of safety they had built in the business center. Victor took the phone gently from her trembling hands and studied the message, his expression unreadable. Don't respond, he said firmly. Iris, can you trace this? Iris was already working, her fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced speed. The number is routed through multiple proxy servers. Give me a minute. Her brow furrowed in concentration as lines of code cascaded down her screen. Whoever sent this knows what they're doing. The signal is bouncing through servers in 3 different countries. Madison wrapped her arms around herself, the elegant gown suddenly feeling like a costume she no longer belonged in. They're watching us right now. They know where we are. Victor moved to the glass door, scanning the corridor outside with tactical precision. Not necessarily. They know you're still in the building, but the threat could be a bluff designed to make you panic and run. That's when people make mistakes. But what if it's not a bluff? Madison asked, her voice tight. What if they really will destroy my company? Then we stop them before they get the chance, Victor said simply. He turned back to Iris. What else can you find in those camera files? Any pattern to when Beck met with his contact? Iris pulled up a timeline on her screen. Beck has been meeting with that same SUV twice a week for the past month. Always in the parking garage. Always at night when there's minimal traffic. She zoomed in on different timestamps. And look at this. Each meeting happens exactly 24 hours before a major event at the hotel. Corporate dinners, charity galas, political fundraisers. Victor's jaw tightened. He's been selling access. Information about high-value targets attending events here. Madison felt sick. How many people has he helped them target? Sick. How many people has he helped them target? I don't know, Iris said quietly. But your event wasn't the first time he's been involved. Victor pulled out his phone and dialed Detective Sarah Chun at Seattle PD, a contact from his security work who had always been straight with him. She answered on the second ring, her voice professional but curious. Malone. It's late. This better be important. Life and death important, Victor said. I need you to run a name for me. Martin Beck, Assistant Operations Manager at the Cascade Summit Hotel. I have evidence he's involved in a conspiracy to harm guests. There was a pause, then the sound of typing. Hold on. More typing. Martin Beck, 53, been with the hotel for 8 years. Clean record. Not even a parking ticket. What kind of evidence are we talking about? Video footage of him taking payment to facilitate an attempted poisoning tonight. The target was Madison Garcia, CEO of Vanguard Systems. Chun's voice sharpened. Madison Garcia? The tech CEO? That's high profile. Where are you right now? Still at the hotel. 7th floor business center. We've got the victim safe, but the suspect is still in the building. I'm sending units now. Stay put and stay safe. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Victor ended the call and looked at Madison. Help is coming. But we need to figure out who's really behind this. Beck is just a facilitator. Someone else is calling the shots. Madison took a deep breath, forcing herself to think strategically. If this is about the merger, then the timing matters. The final signing is in 3 days. If I die or if I'm too scared to proceed, the deal collapses. That benefits several parties. Walk me through them, Victor said, pulling up a chair. Madison began pacing, her mind working through the puzzle. First, there's Caldwell, my former partner. He would love to see me fail, but he doesn't have the resources for something this elaborate. Second, there's Thorne's investor group. They have the money and the motive. If the merger fails, Vanguard's stock price drops and they could launch another takeover attempt at a lower price. Who else? Victor prompted. There's a company called Fortress Security. They were our main competitor for the European contract. If we complete the merger, they lose billions in projected revenue. Madison stopped pacing. Their CEO, a man named Victor Harrison, has a reputation for playing dirty. There were rumors years ago that he sabotaged a competitor's product launch. Iris looked up from her screen. Harrison. I just found something. She turned her tablet so they could see. Victor Harrison has a private security firm on retainer. Eclipse Solutions. They specialize in corporate intelligence, and according to some very buried forum posts, they offer less legal services for the right price. Victor leaned in. What kind of services? Industrial sabotage, blackmail. There are allegations of worse, but nothing proven in court. Iris pulled up more information. Eclipse Solutions has an office here in Seattle. And get this, one of their consultants checked into this hotel 3 days ago. Room 2047. The pieces were falling into place. Victor felt the familiar rush of a mission coming into focus. The clarity that came when chaos began to organize itself into patterns. So Harrison hires Eclipse Solutions to stop the merger, Victor said, thinking aloud. They plant Beck inside the hotel or recruit him. They planned the hit for tonight when Madison would be publicly visible. If the poisoning succeeds, it looks like a random attack or corporate rivalry gone violent. Either way, the merger dies. Madison felt cold despite the warm air in the business center. This isn't just about killing me. It's about sending a message to the entire industry. Nobody is safe. But they didn't count on me seeing the drop, Victor said. And they definitely didn't count on Iris. Iris was already pulling up more data. If Eclipse has someone in room 2047, we need to know who they are. Dad, I can hack the hotel's guest registry, but it'll take a few minutes and it's risky. If they're monitoring the network like I think they are, they'll know someone is digging. Victor considered this. How long until Detective Chun arrives? Maybe 10 minutes now, Victor estimated. That's not enough time to wait, Madison said suddenly. If Eclipse knows the police are coming, they'll erase everything and disappear. We need to act now. Victor looked at her. What are you suggesting? Madison's eyes were bright with determination. We go to room 2047. We confront them. Get them on record, admitting what they've done. That's incredibly dangerous, Victor said flatly. So is doing nothing, Madison shot back. These people tried to kill me. They threatened my company, my employees, everything I've built. I'm not going to hide in a business center while they walk away. Victor studied her face, seeing the steel beneath the fear. She reminded him of soldiers he had served with, people who had every reason to run, but chose to stand instead. If we do this, he said carefully, we do it my way. You follow my lead, you don't take risks, and if things go wrong, you run. Understood? Madison nodded. Understood. Iris stood up, closing her tablet. I'm coming too. Absolutely not, Victor said immediately. Dad, you need me. If they have computers up there, I can pull data that could disappear in seconds. You need someone who can work fast. She met his eyes with that same stubborn determination he had seen in her mother. I'm not a little kid anymore. I can help. Victor wanted to argue, wanted to keep her safe in this room until the police arrived. But he also knew his daughter. She was right. And trying to stop her would only waste precious time. You stay behind me at all times, he said finally. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. No arguments, Iris agreed. They moved quickly through the corridor, Victor leading the way with Madison close behind and Iris bringing up the rear. The hotel felt different now, the elegant hallways transformed into potential danger zones. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every closed door could conceal an enemy. They took the service elevator to the 20th floor, the ride up silent and tense. When the doors opened, they emerged into a quiet corridor lined with rooms. Most were dark, their occupants either out for the evening or already asleep. Room 2047 was at the far end of the hall. Light showed under the door. Victor approached carefully, pressing his ear to the door. He could hear voices inside, muffled but urgent. At least 2 people, maybe more. He looked back at Madison and Iris. I'm going to knock and see who answers. Be ready to move. Before he could act, Iris whispered urgently. Dad, wait. I just intercepted a signal. Someone in that room is wiping a hard drive right now. Whatever data is on there, it's being deleted. Victor made a split-second decision. He stepped back and kicked the door hard, right next to the lock. The frame splintered and the door flew open. Inside, 2 men spun around in shock. One was young, maybe 30, sitting at a laptop that showed cascading deletion commands. The other was older, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit. Both froze for a crucial second. Victor crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbing the laptop before the younger man could close it. Nobody move. The silver-haired man recovered quickly, his expression shifting from shock to calculated calm. You're making a serious mistake. This is a private room. You're trespassing. And you're attempting murder, Victor said evenly. Which one of us has the bigger legal problem? Madison stepped into the doorway, her presence regal despite everything. Victor Harrison. I thought it might be you. The silver-haired man's eyes widened fractionally before his mask slipped back into place. Ms. Garcia, what an unexpected surprise. Not as unexpected as poisoned wine, Madison said coldly. Or did you think I wouldn't figure out who wanted me dead? Harrison's smile was thin and dangerous. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm simply in Seattle on business. Iris had moved to the laptop, her fingers flying over the keys. The deletion stopped. I can recover most of the files. She looked up, her young face fierce. Including the payment records to Martin Beck and the communication logs with Eclipse Solutions. Harrison's composure cracked. You have no right to access that information. And you have no right to try to kill people, Iris shot back. The sound of sirens rose from the street below, growing louder. Harrison glanced at the window, then back at Victor with cold calculation. This isn't over, he said quietly. You have no idea what you're interfering with. Then enlighten me, Victor said. His voice hard as steel, but before Harrison could respond, the door burst open again, and Detective Chen entered with 4 officers, weapons drawn. Seattle police. Nobody move. The room erupted into controlled chaos as officers secured Harrison and his associate. Detective Chen took in the scene with sharp, assessing eyes, then focused on Victor. Malone. You want to tell me what's going on here? Victor handed her the laptop. Everything you need is on there. Conspiracy to commit murder, corporate espionage, and probably a few other charges I'm not qualified to name. Chung looked at Madison. Ms. Garcia, are you all right? Thanks to them, Madison said, gesturing to Victor and Iris. They saved my life. As officers led Harrison away in handcuffs, he locked eyes with Madison one final time. The merger will still fail. I'm just one player. There are others. The words sent a chill through the room, a promise of danger not yet ended. A promise of danger not yet ended. The 20th floor of the Cascade Summit Hotel had transformed into a command center for the Seattle Police Department. Officers moved with purpose through the corridor, documenting evidence, taking statements, and securing the scene. Crime scene tape now blocked off room 2047, where forensic technicians worked under bright portable lights. Victor stood near the elevator bank with Iris, watching the organized chaos with the detached calm of someone who had seen far worse and far more dangerous places. Iris leaned against him, exhaustion finally catching up with her, now that the immediate danger had passed. Her tablet was in an evidence bag, its contents being analyzed by the police cyber crimes unit. Detective Sarah Chun approached them, a tablet of her own in hand, and expression that mixed professional respect with personal concern. She was in her early 40s, with sharp features and observant eyes that missed nothing. She had worked with Victor on 2 previous cases, both times impressed by his instincts and discretion. Quite a night you've had, she said, stopping in front of them. That's an understatement, Victor replied. Chun glanced at Iris. You should be incredibly proud of your daughter. The tech team is calling her a genius. The data she recovered from that laptop is damning. Payment records, encrypted communications, even video files of Harrison coordinating the attack. She gets it from her mother, Victor said quietly, his hand resting on Iris's shoulder. How's Madison? He asked. Chun nodded toward a conference room down the hall. Shaken but holding together. She's giving her statement now. We'll need yours too, but I wanted to talk to you first, off the record. Victor straightened, recognizing the shift in her tone. What's wrong? Chun lowered her voice. Harrison was right about one thing. He's not working alone, and what we've uncovered so far suggests this goes deeper than one murder attempt. The Eclipse Solutions connection opens up at least 6 other cases across 3 states. Corporate sabotage, blackmail, 2 suspicious deaths that were ruled accidental. She paused. You stepped into something big, Malone. Are you saying Madison is still in danger? I'm saying we're going to need time to unravel this network, and until we do, anyone connected to this case needs to be careful. Chun looked at Iris, then back at Victor. That includes you and your daughter. Victor felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle over him. What are you recommending? Protective custody for Ms. Garcia, at least for the next few days until we can determine the full scope of the threat. And I'd suggest you keep a low profile. Harrison already knows who you are. He threatened us, Iris said quietly. Before you arrived. He said we had no idea what we were interfering with. Chun's jaw tightened. That's being added to the charges. We're taking this seriously. She looked at Victor. I know you can handle yourself, but your daughter shouldn't be exposed to this kind of danger. I know, Victor said, though the words cost him. He had spent 6 years trying to give Iris a normal life, and in one night that normalcy had shattered. The conference room door opened, and Madison emerged, flanked by 2 officers. She looked exhausted, her makeup smudged, her elegant gown now rumpled and stained. But when she saw Victor and Iris, her expression softened into something approaching relief. She walked over to them. They told me what you found on Harrison's laptop. You've given them enough evidence to put him away for decades. It was mostly Iris, Victor said. Madison crouched down to Iris's eye level. Thank you. For everything. You're the bravest person I've met. Iris managed a tired smile. You're pretty brave too. Not everyone would want to confront the bad guys after what happened. I had good teachers, Madison said. Glancing up at Victor. Detective Ching cleared her throat. Ms. Garcia, we've arranged for you to stay at a secure location until we can assess the full threat level. Officers will escort you. Madison stood but hesitated. What about Victor and Iris? If Harrison sees them as a threat too, they need protection. We've discussed that, Chun said. We'll have patrol units increase their presence in their neighborhood. And I've given Mr. Malone my direct line if anything seems off. That's not enough, Madison said firmly. Her CEO voice emerging despite her exhaustion. These people tried to kill me, and Victor and Iris are the only reason I'm still alive. If Eclipse Solutions wants revenge, they'll be targets too. Victor started to speak, but Madison continued. I own a property in the San Juan Islands. A private house on Lopez Island, very secluded, top-level security. There's plenty of room. You should both stay there until this is resolved. We can't accept that, Victor said immediately. Why not? Madison challenged. Pride? This isn't about charity, Victor. It's about safety. Your daughter's safety. She looked directly at Iris. Would you feel safer staying in the city where these people know where you live, or somewhere remote where nobody can find you? Iris looked up at her father. She has a point, Dad. Victor wanted to argue, but the logic was sound. Their apartment was listed in public records. His security jobs were documented. If Eclipse Solutions wanted to find them, it would not be difficult. And while he could protect himself, the thought of Iris being at risk made his chest tight. How secure is this property? He asked. Gated access, security cameras, alarm system, and the nearest neighbor is half a mile away, Madison said. Plus I'll hire private security to patrol the perimeter. Former Secret Service. The best. Detective Chun nodded approvingly. That's actually a smart move. Remote location, controlled access, professional security. I'd feel better knowing all of you were somewhere like that while we work this case. Victor looked down at Iris, seeing his own uncertainty reflected in her eyes. What do you think, kiddo? I think we should go, Iris said quietly. Just for a few days. Until the police catch everyone involved. The weight of the decision pressed on Victor, but he knew they were right. This was bigger than his pride or his desire to maintain their normal life. This was about keeping Iris safe. All right, he said finally. We'll go. But just until the threat is contained. Relief washed over Madison's face. Thank you. We can leave first thing in the morning. I'll arrange everything. The next hour passed in a blur of statements, paperwork, and logistics. By the time they left the hotel, dawn was beginning to break over Seattle, painting the fog-shrouded city in shades of gold and gray. Police cruisers lined the street, their lights casting blue and red shadows across the wet pavement. Victor's truck was still in the employee parking lot. He drove Iris home through empty streets, both of them silent with exhaustion and the surreal quality of what they had experienced. Their apartment felt small and ordinary after the grand hotel and the drama of the night, but also comforting in its familiarity. "Get some sleep," Victor told Iris as they entered. "We'll pack and leave around noon." But Iris paused in the doorway to her room. "Dad, are we going to be okay?" Victor crossed to her and pulled her into a hug. "Yes, I promise. We're going to be okay." She held onto him tightly. "I was scared tonight. When that man came after us in the stairwell, I was really scared." "Being scared is normal," Victor said gently. "Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what's right, even when you are afraid. And you were incredibly courageous tonight." "So were you," Iris murmured. "We make a good team," Victor said, after Iris went to bed. Victor sat in the small living room, watching the sunrise through the window. He thought about Madison, about the fear in her eyes when she thought she was going to die, and the fierce determination that had emerged when she decided to fight back. He thought about Harrison's warning that there were others, and about the long shadow eclipse solutions cast across multiple states. Most of all, he thought about the choice he had made 6 years ago to leave the military and build a quiet life with his daughter. Tonight had shattered that quiet, dragging them both into danger he had hoped to avoid forever. But it had also reminded him of something he had almost forgotten in the peaceful routine of bookshops and bedtime stories. Sometimes the world needed people willing to stand up to the darkness, even when it was dangerous. Especially when it was dangerous. His phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Thank you again. For everything. I've never met anyone like you and Iris. Sleep well. Tomorrow we start figuring out how to end this." Victor typed back a simple response. "Sleep well. See you tomorrow." He set the phone down and closed his eyes, allowing himself a few hours of rest before the next chapter began. Outside, Seattle woke slowly to a new day. Unaware of the battle that had been fought in its shadows, and the larger war still to come, the ferry to Lopez Island cut through Puget Sound like a blade through silk, leaving a white wake that sparkled in the afternoon sun. Victor stood at the railing on the upper deck, the salt breeze cool against his face, watching the Seattle skyline shrink behind them. The city looked peaceful from this distance, its glass towers gleaming innocently, giving no hint of the violence that had unfolded there less than 24 hours ago. Iris sat on a nearby bench, her new tablet open on her lap. The police had returned her original device after copying its contents, but Madison had insisted on buying her an upgraded model with better security features. Iris had protested at first, but Madison had been insistent, and Victor had recognized it for what it was. Not charity, but gratitude expressed in the only way Madison knew how. Madison herself stood a few feet away, also watching the receding city. She had changed from her gown into simple jeans and a cream sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Without the armor of business attire and makeup, she looked younger, more vulnerable, but also somehow more real. "I haven't been to the island house in almost a year," she said, moving to stand beside Victor. "I bought it as a retreat, somewhere to escape the pressure of the company. But I never seem to have time to actually use it. That's the problem with building empires," Victor said. "They don't run themselves." Madison smiled faintly. "No, they don't." She was quiet for a moment, then added, "I keep replaying last night in my head. That moment when you covered my mouth and told me not to move. I was so close to death and didn't even know it." "But you didn't die," Victor said firmly. "Focus on that." I'm trying, Madison said. It's just hard to process. I've spent 10 years building Vanguard, fighting off competitors, winning impossible contracts. I thought I understood what battle looked like. But last night, I realized I'd been playing at war while people like you lived it. Victor turned to look at her. What happened last night wasn't war. It was murder dressed up as business. There's a difference, is there? Madison asked. Harrison was willing to kill me to protect his interests. How is that different from what you did in the military? Intent, Victor said simply. And rules of engagement. In the military, we fought to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. We followed laws, even when it was hard. What Harrison did was just greed wrapped in violence. Madison absorbed this. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, Victor admitted. It's just clear. There are people who build and people who destroy. Last night, you had a choice between letting fear destroy what you built or fighting to protect it. You chose to fight. That takes a different kind of courage than anything I did in combat. I had help, Madison said, glancing at Iris. A lot of help. Victor smiled. So did I always. The fairy horn sounded, announcing their approach to the island. Iris looked up from her tablet and grinned. We're almost there. I've never been on an island before. Then you're in for a treat, Madison said, her mood lifting. Lopez is beautiful. Quiet. Peaceful. Exactly what we all need right now. The house was everything Madison had promised. Set on a bluff overlooking the water, it was a modern structure of cedar and glass that seemed to grow out of the landscape. Large windows framed views of the Sound and the distant Olympic Mountains. A long driveway wound through dense forest, ending at a security gate that required both a code and a thumbprint to open. Inside, the house was spacious and carefully designed, all clean lines and natural materials. A stone fireplace dominated the living room. The kitchen was state-of-the-art. 3 bedrooms opened onto a deck that ran the length of the house. This is incredible, Iris breathed. Walking from room to room with wide eyes, Madison showed them around, clearly pleased by their reaction. The main bedroom is upstairs. You two can take the guest rooms down here. They both have private bathrooms and ocean views. Victor set down their bags. This is generous of you. More than generous. You saved my life, Madison said simply. This is the least I can do. That evening, they sat on the deck as the sun set over the water, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Madison had ordered groceries delivered earlier, and Victor had cooked dinner, a simple meal of grilled salmon and roasted vegetables. They ate in comfortable silence, the stress of the previous night slowly draining away in the island's peace. After dinner, Iris challenged Madison to a chess game. They set up the board on the coffee table while Victor cleaned the kitchen. Listening to their conversation drift through the open doors. Your dad said you learned chess from your mom, Madison said, making her opening move. Yeah, Iris replied. She was really good. She could think like 6 moves ahead. She tried to teach me to do the same. Did it work? Iris moved her knight with a small smile. Sometimes. Dad says I think more like a hacker than a chess player. I look for weaknesses in the pattern instead of planning long sequences. That's probably more useful in the real world, Madison said. Studying the board, they played in silence for a few minutes. Then Iris asked, Do you have any family? Kids? Madison shook her head. No, I was engaged once years ago, but he wanted me to choose between him and the company. I chose the company. She moved her bishop. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Do you think you did? Iris asked. Madison considered this. Most days, yes. I've built something meaningful, created jobs, pushed technology forward. But nights like this, I wonder what it would be like to have someone to come home to. Someone who wasn't an employee or a competitor. You're coming home to us right now, Iris pointed out. Madison looked up, surprised by the simple observation. I suppose I am. Check, Iris said, moving her queen. Madison laughed. You're as dangerous as your father. Later, after Iris had won the chess match and gone to bed, Victor and Madison sat on the deck under a canopy of stars. The Milky Way stretched across the sky, undimmed by city lights. The only sound was the gentle lap of water against the shore below. Thank you, Madison said quietly. For coming here. For everything. You've already thanked me, Victor said. Multiple times. I know. But I need you to understand what it means. She turned to face him. I've spent a decade being strong, being the person everyone else depends on. I make decisions that affect thousands of people. I can't show weakness or fear because the moment I do, shareholders get nervous and competitors smell blood. She paused, her voice becoming softer. But last night, I was terrified. Completely, utterly terrified. And you stepped in without hesitation, without knowing me, without expecting anything in return. You just did what was right. I didn't know people like you still existed. Victor met her eyes. People like me are everywhere. We just don't make headlines. Well, you should, Madison said. Then, more quietly, can I ask you something personal? Go ahead. Do you ever think about going back? To the military? Victor was silent for a long moment, considering the question. Sometimes, he admitted. I miss the clarity of it. The sense of purpose. In combat, you always know who the enemy is and what you're fighting for. He looked up at the stars. But then I look at Iris and I remember why I left. She's my purpose now. Making sure she grows up safe and happy and loved. That's a different kind of battle, but it's the one I chose. She's lucky to have you, Madison said. Unlucky to have her, Victor replied. They sat in comfortable silence. The bond between them deepening in ways neither quite understood yet. For Madison, accustomed to relationships built on transactions and mutual benefit, this felt different, more real, more grounded. For Victor, used to keeping people at arm's length to protect himself and Iris, this openness felt both frightening and strangely right. What happens after this? Madison asked. After the police catch everyone involved with Eclipse Solutions? You go back to your life, Victor said. You complete your merger, run your company, change the world. And you? I go back to mine. Security work, the bookshop, raising Iris. That sounds lonely, Madison observed. Victor smiled faintly. It's peaceful. Peaceful isn't the same as happy, Madison said. Before Victor could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from Detective Chun. Major development. Call me when you can. Victor's expression shifted instantly from relaxed to alert. It's Chun. Something's happened. He dialed the detective's number. She answered immediately. Malone. Thanks for calling back. We've made progress on the Eclipse Solutions network. Harrison is talking, trying to cut a deal. He's given us names, locations, records of other operations. It's bigger than we thought. How much bigger? Federal investigation bigger. The FBI is taking over. Eclipse has been operating for at least 5 years, targeting executives across multiple industries. What happened to Ms. Garcia is part of a pattern. Victor felt his chest tighten. Are they still a threat? We've arrested 6 people in the last 12 hours, including 2 Eclipse operatives who were planning to leave the country. But there are still loose ends. Chun paused. The good news is, we think we've disrupted their organization enough that immediate retaliation is unlikely. They're too busy covering their own tracks. What's the bad news? The bad news is this is going to take weeks, maybe months to fully unravel. In the meantime, I'd recommend Ms. Garcia and both of you stay vigilant. Victor thanked her and ended the call. He relayed the information to Madison, who had been listening intently. So it's not over, she said. It's never really over, Victor replied. But we're safer than we were yesterday. That's progress. Madison stood and walked to the railing, looking out over the dark water. I should feel relieved. But all I feel is angry. These people tried to reduce me to a statistic, a problem to be eliminated. They almost succeeded. Victor joined her at the railing. But they didn't. And now they're facing justice. That matters, does it? Madison asked. How many other people did they hurt before we stopped them? How many got away? I don't know, Victor said honestly. But I know that giving up or giving in to fear is exactly what they want. The best revenge is living well and refusing to let them change who you are. Well, and refusing to let them change who you are. Madison turned to him, and in the starlight, her eyes shone with unshed tears. Who I am is changing anyway. I can feel it. I can't go back to being the person I was before last night. That version of me died in that ballroom. Then become someone better, Victor said gently. She studied his face. This quiet man who had appeared in her life like a guardian from a story, asking nothing, offering everything. On impulse, she reached out and took his hand. Thank you, she said again. For seeing me. For protecting me. For being exactly who you are. Victor squeezed her hand gently. And for a moment, they stood together under the vast sky. Two people who had been strangers 48 hours ago. Now bound by shared danger and the fragile beginning of something neither could quite name yet. Inside, Iris watched them through the window, a small smile on her face before she turned back to her room, leaving the adults to their moment of quiet connection beneath the stars. 3 days passed on Lopez Island like a dream suspended outside normal time. Victor and Iris fell into an easy rhythm with Madison, sharing meals, long walks along the rocky beach, and evening conversations that stretched late into the night. The security team Madison had hired patrolled the perimeter discreetly, their presence reassuring but unobtrusive. On the fourth morning, Victor woke to find Iris already at the kitchen table. Her laptop open and her expression troubled. What's wrong? He asked, pouring coffee. Dad, I've been monitoring the news feeds about Eclipse Solutions. The FBI made more arrests yesterday, but something weird is happening. She turned the laptop so he could see. Vanguard's stock price dropped 15% overnight. And there are rumors circulating online that Madison's merger documentation has been compromised. Victor's instincts flared. What kind of compromise? Someone leaked partial contract details to industry blogs. Confidential terms, negotiation strategies, proprietary technology specifications. Enough to give competitors an advantage and make the European partners nervous. Iris pulled up another screen. And it gets worse. There are coordinated social media attacks claiming Madison knew about Eclipse Solutions and used them herself for corporate espionage. That's a lie, Victor said flatly. Obviously. But the damage is real. Look at the engagement numbers. Thousands of shares, major business outlets picking up the story. This is a professional disinformation campaign. Madison appeared in the doorway, already dressed for the day. What's a professional disinformation campaign? Iris explained quickly, showing her the articles and social media posts. Madison's face went pale as she read, then flushed with anger. This is Eclipse hitting back, she said, her voice tight. If they can't kill me, they'll destroy my reputation and my company instead. Victor's phone rang. Detective Chun. Malone, are you seeing what's happening online? We just found out. Is this connected to Eclipse? The FBI think so. They're tracing the leak's origin, but whoever did this covered their tracks well. The documents were released through multiple anonymous channels simultaneously. Very sophisticated. Chun paused. There's more. Someone tried to access Vanguard's main servers remotely last night. The attempt was blocked, but it was a serious probe. Professional level. Madison grabbed her own phone and dialed her chief technology officer. David, it's Madison. I need a full security audit right now. Yes, I know it's early. This is an emergency. While Madison coordinated with her team, Iris continued digging through the digital attacks. Dad, the timing of these leaks coincides with server access attempts at 3 different Vanguard facilities: Seattle, Austin, and their Boston office. Someone is trying to breach their network from multiple angles. Victor felt the familiar weight of escalating danger. This isn't just about revenge. They're trying to complete what Harrison started. If they can't kill Madison, they'll kill the merger by destroying trust. Madison ended her call, her expression grim. David confirmed multiple breach attempts overnight. Our security held, but they're testing for weaknesses. He's implementing emergency protocols now. How long until the merger signing? Victor asked. 48 hours, Madison said. If we can hold together until then, the deal completes and becomes much harder to undo. But if the leaks continue, if our security is compromised, the European partners might walk away. Iris looked up from her screen. I think I can help. If I can identify the attack patterns, I might be able to trace them back to the source. But I'll need access to Vanguard security logs. Madison didn't hesitate. Done. I'll have David send you credentials. This is dangerous, Victor warned. If Eclipse realizes someone is tracking them, they might escalate. We're already in danger, Madison said firmly. At least this way we're fighting back. For the next 6 hours, the house became a war room. Iris worked alongside Vanguard's security team remotely, analyzing attack patterns and building a profile of their adversary. Madison coordinated with her legal team, preparing responses to the false allegations while trying to reassure nervous investors. Victor maintained security, monitoring the perimeter and staying in contact with the protection detail. His military training had taught him that when an enemy shifted tactics, it usually meant they were preparing for something bigger. By late afternoon, Iris made a breakthrough. I found something, she announced. The attacks are coming from a botnet, thousands of compromised computers working together. But there's a control node, a single point coordinating everything. And I think I know where it is. She brought up a map on her screen. Portland, Oregon. Specifically, an office building downtown registered to a shell company. The digital signature matches Eclipse's known infrastructure. Victor studied the map. Portland is 3 hours away by car and ferry. The FBI needs to know about this, Madison said, reaching for her phone. They do, Victor agreed. But by the time they get warrants and coordinate a raid, Eclipse might vanish. These people have shown they can disappear quickly. Madison met his eyes. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we need eyes on that location now. Someone who can confirm Eclipse is there before they run. You want to go to Portland, Madison said. It wasn't a question. I want to make sure these people don't get away, Victor replied. Then I'm coming with you, Madison said immediately. Absolutely not. You're the target. You stay here where it's safe. My company is burning while we sit on an island, Madison shot back. I'm not hiding anymore. They stared at each other, neither willing to back down. Finally, Iris cleared her throat. Actually, I should go too. If we find their control node, someone needs to shut it down properly. That's me. No, Victor said flatly. Dad, you need me. And sitting here worrying would be worse than helping. Victor wanted to argue, wanted to lock both of them safely in the house while he handled this alone. But he knew his daughter, and he was beginning to understand Madison. Neither would accept being left behind. If we do this, he said carefully, we do it smart. We scout the location, confirm Eclipse's presence, and call the FBI. No heroics. No unnecessary risks. Agreed, Madison said. Iris nodded. Agreed. Victor pulled out his phone and called Detective Chen, explaining what they'd found and what they planned to do. She was silent for a long moment. "I should tell you not to go," she said finally. "But I know you will anyway. So instead I'll say this. Be careful, document everything, and the moment you have confirmation, you call me and the FBI. Promise me." "I promise," Victor said. They packed quickly and efficiently. Victor checked the truck's emergency kit, making sure they had everything they might need. Madison changed into practical clothes and grabbed her laptop. Iris backed up all her data to a secure cloud server, just in case. As they prepared to leave, Victor paused and looked at the two people he was about to take into potential danger. His daughter, brilliant and brave beyond her years, and Madison, a woman who had transformed from a stranger into someone he deeply cared about protecting. "Last chance to change your minds," he said. "Not a chance," Madison replied. Iris simply smiled and headed for the truck. Victor took a breath and followed, knowing that whatever happened next would determine not just the fate of Madison's company, but the future of all three of them. The drive to Portland stretched through the late afternoon and into evening, the landscape shifting from island forests to urban sprawl. Victor drove in focused silence while Iris navigated from the passenger seat, and Madison worked on her laptop in the back. Coordinating with her team, they reached downtown Portland as darkness fell, the city's lights reflecting off wet streets from an earlier rain. The building Iris had identified stood in the business district, a nondescript 10-story structure of glass and concrete that could have housed any number of legitimate companies. Victor parked 2 blocks away and studied the building through binoculars. Most windows were dark, but the 7th floor showed activity, shadows moving behind partially closed blinds. "That's the floor registered to the shell company," Iris confirmed, checking her tablet. "And I'm detecting significant network activity coming from that location. Whatever they're doing it now." Victor called Detective Chen, updating her on their location. "The FBI is mobilizing," she told him. "But it'll be at least 45 minutes before they arrive. Do not engage. Just observe." "Understood," Victor said, though his instincts told him 45 minutes might be too long. Madison leaned forward from the back seat. "If they're actively attacking Vanguard's systems right now, every minute counts. By the time the FBI gets here, they could complete the breach or wipe everything and run." Victor knew she was right, but he also knew the risk. "We can get closer, get eyes inside if possible. But we stay out of sight." They approached the building carefully. The main entrance was locked after hours, monitored by a security camera. But Victor spotted a side entrance used for deliveries, the door propped open with a brick. Sloppy security or intentional access for quick escape. "Stay close," he whispered, leading them inside. The interior was dimly lit by emergency lighting. They found the stairwell and climbed quietly to the 7th floor. Through the stairwell door's small window, Victor could see the hallway. Empty, but light spilled from an open office door halfway down. He eased the door open, and they slipped into the corridor. From the office came voices, tense and urgent. "The FBI knows about this location," a man's voice said. "We need to finish the data extraction and clear out, now." "5 more minutes," another voice replied. "We're almost through their final firewall." Victor positioned himself where he could see into the office without being seen. 3 people worked at computer stations, their screens filled with cascading code. He recognized one of them from Harrison's laptop files. A known Eclipse operative. Iris tugged on his sleeve and pointed to her tablet. She'd accessed the building's Wi-Fi and was monitoring the data flowing from the office. "They're downloading everything," she whispered. "Financial records, proprietary code, client information. If they succeed, Vanguard is finished." Madison's face was pale but determined. "We have to stop them." Before Victor could respond, Iris's tablet chimed softly. Too softly to hear from the office, But in the quiet hallway, it might as well have been a siren. One of the Eclipse operatives looked up sharply. "Did you hear that?" Victor made a split-second decision. "Stay here," he commanded, and stepped into the doorway. 3 surprised faces turned toward him. "Seattle police are 2 minutes out," Victor said with absolute conviction, though he knew it was closer to 40. "FBI right behind them. You can run now or explain everything to federal agents. Your choice." For a moment, nobody moved. Then the woman at the center computer lunged for a button on the desk. Victor recognized a panic wipe, a kill switch to destroy all evidence. He crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed her wrist before she could press it. "I don't think so." The other 2 operatives bolted for the door. Madison stepped into their path, her phone raised and recording. "I've got your faces on video," she said calmly. "And I know who you work for. Run if you want. We'll find you." They hesitated, trapped between Madison's certainty and the sound of approaching sirens that Victor's call had actually summoned earlier than expected. Iris appeared in the doorway. Her tablet connected to one of the office computers by a cable she'd produced from her bag. "I'm locking down your systems," she announced. "Everything you've done here is being copied to a secure server. Every keystroke, every file accessed, every command executed. It's all evidence now." The woman Victor held struggled briefly, then went still as Detective Chun's voice echoed from the stairwell. "Seattle Police, in coordination with FBI, nobody move." The room filled with officers, weapons drawn but unnecessary. The Eclipse operatives were defeated. Their final attack stopped moments before completion. Chun surveyed the scene, then looked at Victor with a mixture of exasperation and respect. "You promised to observe only." "We observed them committing crimes," Victor replied. "And we stopped them." An FBI agent Victor didn't recognize approached Madison. "Ms. Garcia, we'll need access to your systems to document what they attempted to steal." "My CTO is standing by," Madison said. "And this young woman has already captured most of it." She gestured to Iris, who was explaining the technical details to a cybercrime specialist. Over the next 2 hours, the office became a federal crime scene. The Eclipse operatives were arrested and taken into custody. Their computers were seized as evidence. Iris's documentation proved invaluable, providing a clear timeline of the attack and its connection to the earlier attempts on Madison's life. As the last of the evidence was being loaded into FBI vehicles, Chun pulled Victor aside. "This is it," she said quietly. "With what you found tonight, we can dismantle Eclipse completely. Harrison is already cooperating fully, giving us everything. The threat to Ms. Garcia is over." Victor felt tension he'd been carrying for days finally begin to ease. "You're sure?" "As sure as I can be," Chun said. "There's always a chance someone else picks up where Eclipse left off, but the organization itself is finished. They're done." Victor found Madison and Iris standing near his truck. Iris was explaining something technical to Madison, who listened with genuine fascination. They looked up as he approached. "It's over," he said simply. Madison's eyes filled with tears she'd been holding back for days. "Really over?" "Really over," Victor confirmed. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him, holding on tightly. Victor returned the embrace, feeling the trembling relief in her body. Over her shoulder, he saw Iris smiling. "Thank you," Madison whispered against his chest. "For everything." "We make a good team," Victor said quietly. When they finally pulled apart, Madison wiped her eyes and laughed shakily. "I must look terrible." "You look perfect," Victor said, and meant it. They drove back to Lopez Island through the night, exhaustion finally catching up with all of them. But it was a good exhaustion, the kind that came after a battle won rather than lost. As they crossed the last ferry under a sky full of stars, Iris fell asleep against the window. Madison dozed in the back seat. Victor drove in peaceful silence, processing everything that had happened. 5 days ago, he'd been a simple security guard covering an extra shift. Now he'd helped stop a murder, unravel a criminal conspiracy, and save a company worth billions. But more than that, he'd found something he hadn't been looking for. A connection that felt like it might become something lasting. The island house welcomed them home like a sanctuary. They stumbled inside and collapsed, too tired even for conversation. But before Victor went to his room, Madison caught his hand. "Stay," she said softly. "Just for a minute." They sat together on the deck one last time, watching dawn begin to paint the horizon. "What happens now?" Madison asked. "Now you complete your merger," Victor said. "You rebuild what Eclipse damaged. You keep changing the world. And you?" Victor smiled. "I keep being a dad. Keep working security. Keep living a quiet life. Does it have to be so quiet?" Madison asked. Victor turned to look at her, seeing the hope and fear and possibility in her eyes. "What are you asking?" "I'm asking if maybe your quiet life could include me sometimes. And if my loud life could include you." Victor felt something warm unfold in his chest, like a door opening after years locked shut. "I'd like that." Madison smiled, and in the growing light of dawn, everything felt like a beginning. 2 months later, Seattle gleamed under an October sun that felt like a benediction. The Vanguard Systems Tower stood tall in the downtown skyline, its glass facade reflecting a city fully alive with possibility. Inside the executive conference room, Madison Garcia stood before a wall of windows, looking out over the same city where her life had nearly ended. Behind her, the merger documents lay signed and sealed on the table. Vanguard had not only survived Eclipse's attacks, but had emerged stronger. Its stock price, climbing to record highs after the FBI's announcement of the criminal network's complete dismantling. But today wasn't about corporate victories. Today was about something more personal. Victor arrived at the tower with Iris just after noon, both dressed more formally than usual. Madison met them in the lobby with a smile that lit up her entire face. "You came," she said, as if there had been any doubt. "We promised," Victor replied. They took a private elevator to the top floor, where Madison had organized a small gathering. Her executive team was there, along with Detective Chun, several FBI agents who had worked the case, and a handful of reporters Madison trusted. "Thank you all for coming," Madison began, standing at a podium with Victor and Iris beside her. 2 months ago, someone tried to end my life and destroy this company. They failed because of the courage and brilliance of 2 people who owed me nothing but gave me everything. She turned to Victor and Iris. "Today, I'm announcing the creation of the Malone Initiative, a foundation dedicated to supporting children of military families. It will provide scholarships, mentorship programs, and resources to help young people like Iris reach their full potential." Iris's eyes went wide. "You're naming it after us? Your mother's sacrifice and your father's courage deserve to be honored," Madison said gently. "And your genius deserves to inspire others." She handed Iris a folder. Inside is the Foundation's charter and an invitation for you to serve on the Youth Advisory Board, if you want to. Iris looked at her father, who nodded with pride. "I want to," she said, her voice thick with emotion. The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. But Victor only had eyes for Madison, seeing the woman who had transformed from a near victim into someone determined to turn tragedy into purpose. After the ceremony, after the press had left and the executives had returned to their work, the 3 of them stood alone in Madison's office. "There's something else," Madison said nervously. She pulled out 2 envelopes and handed one to each of them. "These are for you. No obligation. Just an offer." Victor opened his envelope. Inside was a job offer, Director of Corporate Security for Vanguard Systems. With a salary that made his eyes widen, Iris opened hers. a full scholarship to any university of her choosing, along with an internship program at Vanguard starting immediately. "This is too much," Victor said. "It's not nearly enough," Madison countered. "But it's what I can offer. A chance for us to keep working together. A chance for this to be more than just a story about people who survived something terrible." She stepped closer to Victor. "A chance for us to build something good." Victor looked at the offer letter, then at his daughter's hopeful face, then at Madison's vulnerable expression. He thought about the quiet life he'd built, the careful walls he'd constructed to keep danger away from Iris, but he also thought about the past 2 months. The late-night calls with Madison, discussing everything from security protocols to favorite books. The weekend visits to the island house, where Iris and Madison had become genuinely close. The slow, careful way trust had deepened into something neither of them had expected. "On one condition," Victor said finally. "Name it," Madison replied. "No more poisoned wine." Madison laughed, the sound bright and free. "Deal." Iris threw her arms around both of them. "This is the best day ever." 6 months later, Victor stood in the same spot Madison had occupied that pivotal day, looking out over Seattle from Vanguard's tower. But now it was his office, his view, his new life. Iris flourished in her internship, working with Vanguard's development team and already filing her first patent. She had also launched her online mentorship program for young coders, with Madison's foundation providing the funding and infrastructure. And Madison herself had become not just his employer, but his partner in every sense of the word. They took things slowly, mindful of Iris and the weight of what they'd survived together. But the connection that had begun in crisis had deepened into something genuine and lasting. One evening, the three of them returned to Lopez Island for the weekend. As the sun set over the water, painting the sky in familiar golds and purples, they sat on the deck together. "Dad," Iris said, "do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't been at the hotel that night?" Victor considered this. "Sometimes. But I've learned that life is built on moments like that. Small choices that cascade into big changes. Like deciding to help a stranger," Madison added, "taking his hand. Or like choosing to keep fighting when it would be easier to give up," Iris said wisely. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. The fog that had hidden danger that first night was gone, replaced by clear skies and endless possibility. Victor thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a poisoned glass and whispered warnings to this moment of peace and promise. He thought about loss and courage, about the family he'd protected and the family he'd found. "You know what the best part is?" Iris asked, breaking the silence. "What's that?" Madison replied, "We're not just a team anymore. We're home." And as the three of them sat together under the vast Pacific sky, surrounded by the quiet strength of what they'd built, Victor knew she was right. They had found something rare and precious, forged in danger but built on trust, courage, and the simple decision to care for each other even when it was hard. The storm had passed. The dawn had come. And somewhere in the space between survival and joy, they had become exactly what each of them needed most. A family chosen not by blood, but by the miracle of showing up for each other when it mattered most. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.